Welcome to Agile to Agility podcast with Miljan, Bajic. Major show alert!
The very first value we wrote is individuals and interactions.
Let's take this another level.
Everything that we've done, any kind of huge inventions that have been made, has been really on innovation, not like some light bulb going off.
Who is Michael Vizdos?
I'm just a regular guy.
That's what everybody says, right?
It really is. I've spent 30 years in the industry, working for big companies, small companies, did a couple startups, and have been pretty much on my own since 2001. Working with a lot of companies and organizations and military teams on like, how do you get better using this Agile stuff? And Agile's not the outcome. Really, it's, deliver outcomes that are important to the organization.
Mm-hmm. How did you get into this Agile space? Like, what was because everybody has their own kind of journey of how and usually it's accidental, like it's not. What was your journey?
Yeah, for me, it was, I spent almost the first 10 or 12 years of my career working for other companies and being super frustrated about not being able to deliver good results, not even good results consistently, just good results. Mm-hmm. And I joked around with a friend of mine way back in the day of, God, if there was some kind of methodology or framework that we could just say, like, let's iterate on this and get better. That was right around the time Alistair was working with IBM and figuring out the Crystal method. And I worked at the time for IBM. Well, I actually was EDS, doing contract work on this thing called OS2. It's an old operating system from IBM. And during that time, I really came to appreciate like teamwork and did a couple startups, and then right at about 2001, got involved with some of the early Agile adopters. Started following Ken Schwaber. He delivered this Scrum Master class. I was one of the really, really early adopters in that class. And as I was doing that, I was writing this book on this thing called the Enterprise Unified Process with Scott Ambler. And it was big, heavy software development stuff. And I was like, oof. As soon as it got published, I was like, wow, that's good. But now what? So during that time, I had gotten certified by Ken and really started working with him and Jeff Sutherland and others early on. To get classes started, trying to figure out what is this Scrum Alliance thing. And here we are, 20 years later.
Yeah, and that's been an interesting journey. Maybe we can come back to that. Like, I know you've contributed a lot. You've mentored a lot of people at Scrum Alliance. So that might be something to come back. But I interviewed Scott, and I think, over the years, his perspective has changed. What are your thoughts on the current DAD or DA?
It's good stuff. Scott's always been good at pushing back against the organized stuff. It was good to see actually that when the PMI bottom out for the disciplined Agile delivery, right? It's fun now watching Scott there, Alan, Shalloway, Al Shalloway is.
I gotta interview him too.
Yeah, definitely. He'd be a good person to interview, and we've known each other for a long time and pushed back on a lot of ideas. So
it seems like everybody, so far I'm almost like I've interviewed close to 50 people, like 47. I think this is my 47th interview in like 4 months. And like there's a common pattern where like I think people are realizing that these prescriptive approaches, as lightweight as frameworks they could be, they're still prescriptive, and that like there's still more we need to more contextualize things in our organization, especially when we start scaling or descaling. So that's one thing that's really, like, when I spoke with Scott, when I spoke with David Anderson, all of these thought leaders that represent different maybe paths or have a common message, which is in a sense, we got to go back to the basics. We got to go back and understand these patterns and principles before we start, doing things. And even Dean, I mean, I spoke with Dean Laughingwell, and he has his own perspective, but underneath all of that, he understands the fundamentals and what needs to happen. It's up to people to, fool with a tool. What is the saying that goes? Is still a fool, right? So
exactly. Yeah. And I've really tried to stay focused on a lot of the basics, because I find that, going back to the basics a lot is super helpful. And whether it's, Scrum, Kanban, whatever kind of framework or methodology you want to use, it's important to focus on the people and in your actions.
Good. When you look at today and reflect back, like what is important? What are you currently working on? What's important to you right now when you look at?
Yep. So today really it's definitely staying with training. I really only do public training maybe once a month. I find that that's a good way to get people introduced to the topic, but, training a bunch of people and then, setting them back into the environment that they're in is not really super impactful, right? They need support after. So I've been doing, mentoring. I've got the Agile mentoring group with Ron Jeffries, and I host that. And that's just an experiment where, Ron and I host the Slack community and talk to people. And like with a lot of Slack, people come in and out, and it's great to see different perspectives from everyone around the world that's in that group. And then I'm also spending a lot of time right now with schools and education. And it's important to me to help. Really, this is generational change. And, the stuff that we do is stuff basically that's taught in kindergarten, right? Play nice with others, say please and thank you, don't be about everything. And it's been a really fun journey, really since about 2013. I got involved with schools from elementary up through universities, and I've been spending a lot of time lately too with the administration level. So at the district level of like, how do you use Scrum at the organization level, not even deep down into the schools with the classrooms. And the Scrum Alliance is really starting to back this thing called Cal K-12, where it's going to be certification for teachers to help give teachers tools to flip the classroom without really making huge major changes, because any teachers in the world, they've got tons and tons of stuff to do. And, adding another thing on top of it is not going to help. So
that too. Yeah. And I've really I've been teaching in university here, and it's interesting. Even just like you said, it's surprising that this is not being pushed more in schools. And I think Scrum Alliance could definitely play an even bigger role in this, and not just Scrum Alliance, everybody. Because you have kids coming out of school, and now it's a little bit different. I think there's more and more, but don't even know some of these approaches, when they're looking for a job, it's like Scrum what, or Agile what. And maybe it's not, the point is not Agile or Scrum, but this way of working and understanding, and also from like you said, playing nice from a people side, how do we better work together, and how do we better understand each other's needs? How do we empathize better with others and things like that? Yeah. What other things, like when it comes to schools, like in your work there, what are some of the things that are different maybe from what you see in the corporate, typical corporate environment?
One of the things that I'm still adjusting to is in education, there is still an openness to share and an encouragement to share. Um, it changes when you start bringing money into the conversation and competition. Um, I'm there is no single place where like there's this I invented it and it's mine. Everything that we've done, any kind of huge inventions that have been made has been really on innovation, not like some light bulb going off.
It is interesting, and some of the ways like that ego, and like I think as soon as you throw in the money into in corporate environment, and you have organizational structure, especially that it reinforces that it becomes very difficult to innovate because it's less of a collaborative effort. It's more like I got to protect my fiefdom and do what I'm incentivized. Where I don't know if in schools I've never worked at the administrative level, or but it is interesting and just how that plays out. So I've asked a couple of questions. Do you want to ask me? So we thought for listeners, and we'll play back and forth, or Michael will ask.
So for you, you're almost 50 episodes in. What's different today versus like day one for you, like the first podcast that you did?
I don't know if there's much different besides like that. I just keep enjoying these conversations. So like my first one was with Daniel Mezick. I believe I reached out to him and Gene and Jendal. I was like, guys, I have an idea for this podcast. Would you be willing? I want to just pilot it, see, like I want to do 3-4 of these. If it works, I'll continue doing it. If it doesn't, and it was just right from the get-go. I don't know, because I was maybe comfortable with them. It was really just, I enjoy like we're having conversation here. It's like I miss the type of conversations, and the only way to get time with people seems now is this way. So it was also a nice way to say, hey, do you have an hour to chit chat about topics that both we might be interested. So I don't know if there is like anything different, but like I'm starting to see patterns. Like as I'm talking to people are saying things differently, but they're saying the same things in a sense of like what they think. For instance, where we had it, what are some of the challenges that we're facing, their own kind of journeys, and some of the biases too, and some of the one of the things that I maybe so this is definitely something. So I just the diversity, inclusion, that's something that I didn't think about, for instance, at the beginning. I was just, I had a bunch of white guys in my mind, like, because those are the people that I know, those are the people in our community that are considered leaders. And I started thinking, like, look at my first 10 interviews. It's all middle-aged white guys. And I'm like, that was something that just, presented itself to me. And I'm like, how do I add more diversity? But also not just do it for sake of, hey, I want to diversity, I'm just going to interview anybody just to add to the mix. But like, what is it that, what is some of the criteria, or what are the topics that we'd like to discuss? So that's definitely something now that you ask that I think about as far as like, hey, how do I add different voices? And maybe a couple other things that as I did this, like I started thinking about, well, if I'm interviewing thought leaders, that's great, right? But how do I create a platform for people that are doing some great stuff and get them a little bit more exposed to our community and highlight some of the stuff that they're doing. So that's the different part that I want to do that I didn't think of when I first started. And the third thing is like doing these like Ask Me Anything sessions. So I did one with Roman Pilcher and then Mezek. I'm gonna ask Mike Cohn if he wants to do one. And just like these are like where I'm not asking the questions, others are asking the questions. I'm just facilitating.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some of the things that come to mind when.
So for people that are listening or watching this, for the diversity part, what kind of requests would you have for maybe even the people watching or listening to help you get more diverse maybe people involved?
So I think like anything that would shed maybe different light. I feel like another thing that I'm seeing is, which goes back to like those same patterns, like maybe diversity in topics, diversity in perspectives. Um, uh, there's something to be said about having people disagree with some of the common. So I think that healthy, differences in perspectives, which just made me think about like another thing that I could do is hold debates and facilitate those. But just in general, like for instance, one thing that I just reached out to Dan from Taiwan. Like he was a monk that became Scrum trainer, and that's a great example of like I don't know anybody that was a monk and that's done like Scrum. He's tried to do Scrum and cooking and different ways, and I love like recently what he's been doing like to entertain people in training. I don't know if you have seen, but he's like doing some really cool
Things
stuff.
scrolling up about what he's doing.
Yeah.
DJing and things.
Yeah, DJing, like I love that. And I think another thing that I've been thinking about like is trainers that do fun stuff in class. So maybe compiling trainers. I've been doing like this piece on uh, uh, I wanted to this piece of remembering kind of like people and one person that I got a chance to meet in Dublin. I think you were there too, Mike Beadle. And my first interaction with him was very positive in the sense that like I didn't even know who he was. I was sitting next to him and he was just like the nicest guy trying to get me to. And then when I realized who it was, I'm like, holy, like so I know people have done certain things to remember and keep his ideas, and so I've been interviewing people just to kind of add a little bit more to that. So those type of kind of like maybe deviating a little bit from my typically what I've started and trying to add the diversity in that way. I spoke with Anu Gopold and talked to her about what she's doing in Africa and Nigeria, and those are I think ideas that I didn't think about when I first started, but now.
Yeah, that's awesome. So zoom forward to episode 99 or 100. What's going to be different?
I think that going back to what I just said, that there is more diversity, that there is, and I want to like reflect a little bit. So I'm gonna take mostly pause for the next couple of months, as I'm gonna spend time in Croatia and Montenegro, Serbia, Bosnia, that whole former Yugoslavia, and maybe take that time to reflect a little bit. But I'm hoping that that I can add a little bit more to that diversity. I haven't gotten or asked for any feedback on these. For an agilist or somebody that considers himself agilist, I haven't really gotten a lot of feedback besides just generic feedback that people tell me. And but I'm not proactive. So we'll see. I don't know with that 100.
maybe build some of that into the new flow of things. It'll be interesting. So when you come back, you'll be all recharged and ready to go. You're working on a book, right?
So yes, I'm working on a book, and I tell people like the reason that I started the podcast is to not write. I have about 40,000 words written, 9 chapters. It's really based on, it's called Wicked Leadership, based on wicked problems. How do we lead in a complex environment where we're dealing a lot of times with wicked problems? So I'm writing a book. I was hoping to be done by now, but you wrote a book. I don't know. Maybe you can give me advice
Yeah,
when you
just
have a writer's block and you just can't get back in the rhythm. What do you do?
yeah, just keep writing, write every day. Even if it's garbage, write it. You can always delete it.
Mhm.
The book that Scott and I wrote with one more co-author, it was a long process. And
Mhm.
one of the things I learned with writing that one, and this was back before, this was 2004, 2005 when we were, writing it and creating it.
Yeah.
Um, it our copy editor, we had to, send it out for copy. We got like physical FedEx printed versions that we had to go back and do. We, and I definitely came to love and respect, copy editors, and the humility of just, hey, this is what's needed. Um,
Mhm.
the and the important thing is, you're not gonna ever get rich off of a book.
Mhm.
Maybe a couple of the early authors, got some big bang for the buck on that. But really, what a book does allow you to do is get some more exposure
Mhm.
into the world, and then you can lean back into that if you need to.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it was never, it's just like some of these ideas that I have. I'm also writing in a book is more like a novel or has stories. Like, so I try to tie things from growing up in a war
Mhm.
or maybe like, an experience with a client. So it has
Yeah,
a lot of stories intertwined in it. It's pretty much that. And it's also helped me to have like writing coaches and at like just to help me when I'm stuck. And one of the challenges last 3 years we spent in California, and last year we pretty much Airbnb during the COVID. So it was just like moving, and I keep making excuses, but I agree. Like one of the things that I know, and this is maybe for people listening too, if they're considering writing a book, I definitely resonated when you said like write every day. That's the probably if I could give people one advice, I was waking up at like 4:30, start writing at 5 to 7 was my time, uninterrupted, and it was uh, it was during that time that I made the most progress.
absolutely.
Uh,
And it's
Another,
very different than either doing a podcast or writing blogs too. I'm seeing a lot of people like recast blogs into books, and I'm like, bleh, not
I've
super
been thinking
exciting. So
about something like that too. I don't know, like if it's a blog or what I'm gonna do, but the fact is that people want different mediums. So, like for instance, the way that this podcast, mostly video podcast, I still haven't put it like a regular podcast, which I have to in audio just only. But there's so much good stuff that people have said and tips. So, like, I got to figure out how to extract that and just make it maybe available in a different format for people. Because not everybody's going to go through every single talk or discussion that I had, and I'm the only one that has listened to all of this or been part of all of this, and I know there's so much good stuff. So I gotta figure out. I've been thinking about possibly some type of book or paper or whatever, like my
mhm.
takeaways, but I don't know.
Yep. And even just getting out and maybe helping to keep in that writing mode is uh, just blog
Mhm.
regularly about the topic, like with implementing Scrum with the chicken and pig cartoons, right? For almost 6 or 7 years, every single week, right?
Mhm.
A new comic strip came out, and I wrote consistently. And really over the past 3 or 4 years, what I've done is shifted from blogging to sending emails.
Mhm.
And like every Saturday morning at Implementing Scrum, you'll get people that are subscribed there will get an email from me about implementing Scrum in the real world. And it's really it's what I'm seeing in the real world working with teams today. And how do you get better implementing Scrum? Using things like the Scrum Guide. I've recorded that Scrum Guide audiobook for since like 2013 version. And
I always listen to that, by the way.
the smooth sounds, right?
No, especially when like it's sometimes easier, and I'm like trying to depict stuff, and even when I'm laying in the bed, like I feel like I have more focus and less distraction.
Right.
So I always download those and listen. So.
Yep. And in this latest version, I created an interactive Scrum Guide too now. So if you go online and instead, if you're like, what is this event or activity, you can click it and it'll bring you to that next spot in the Scrum Guide. I'm seeing a lot of people using that both in training and then back with their teams now too. So it's important.
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, it's and you just gave me an idea in a sense what I haven't thought about, but like, I can write my takeaways from each of the interviews and send that as an email, and people can watch it, but they also get, and then I can also put that. I mean, you said you're not writing a blog. I can put it in an email, but there's also no reason to put it like as a blog too. So that's something that I haven't thought about. So thank you, Mike.
Yeah, there's an unending idea factory. I think between both of us, we could just spin out ideas left and right all day, every day. And one of the things that's important, like for writing the book, is you're writing it. When I was under contract to do the book back in 2005, one of the things I learned is I think 9 out of the 10 people that are under contract don't finish the book.
Even though you have that pressure. And still,
Yep.
Yeah, it's like I got stuck in this. It's really the format. I know what I want to say, but it's the structure, and it's just the longer it seems like the longer that I put it away, the longer. And I also feel like things are marinating, and my ideas are getting better. So it's like also there's no sense of urgency. Like if I write it this year, next year, like I know that I have something. But so it's just I keep making excuses at the end of the day. But even it doesn't matter. I think it goes back to just write every day. You can throw it away, but even half an hour, like any muscle, you train it. The more that you train it, I want to get your thoughts on co-creation and pairing, because you've done that. I'm assuming throughout your life, just looking at, having previous discussions with you and looking at what you're doing, you're always, looking to help others and co-create. What are, like, when you reflect on that, like maybe who are some of the people that, or maybe ways that, that you kind of think about co-creating or helping, or I don't know, like what goes through your head when you want to do something? Because it seems like your tendency is a lot of times to collaborate. And even when I've done like, co-trainings, whatever, it just seems like I work better when I work with somebody else and it can feed off their thought process and they can feed off my thought process.
Yep. The important thing really is for you and whoever is co-creating with you are aligned. And it's really like doing a dance together. And it's important that you stay in alignment. And when you're not, be able to walk away from it and be okay. Right. It does ebb and flow. We're idea factories. We love coming up with new stuff. And we learn new things. Right. And when we learn new things, sometimes our perspective does change. So I've been fortunate enough to really have awesome conversations with people like you and others in the industry over the years, where we've been able to collaborate. And sometimes they work, sometimes they're spectacular failures, And in my mind, the spectacular failures look like this huge mushroom cloud of, waste. Here's what really is. The world is still spinning. So it's important to be able to also have fun while you're doing it, right? If it gets into a slog, it's probably time to tap out and maybe
do something else. Yeah,
do something else.
Nice. Yeah, I definitely. I think that that what you two things that really resonated is like that things evolve, and I've had like a couple of startups where I started with my friends or colleagues, and just things evolve, and like we don't have like just we learned or have changed perspectives, and in some instances it's been like not necessarily like bad, but just we see things differently and we just walk away. Sometimes it's been just like, hey, let me support you with this part that you're doing, and I think as I'm maturing and getting older, there's so much you have to go into any type of collaboration, co-creation with knowing that things will evolve. But the most important thing is like, while we have fun, something good is probably, or there's a really good chance that something good can come out of this. What have I mean, you've supported over the years Scrum Alliance in so many different ways. Maybe just to touch on Scrum Alliance, because a lot of times, we always tend to look at the negative side, or it's easy to bitch about this, bitch about that. As you look at Scrum Alliance over the years, what are you proud of? What are you happy? Because I remember, I think you, Mike Dwyer, Jim York, and I were in Boston for those face-to-face. It was a small room and small group of people. And you guys were not necessarily very happy with the current leadership, but still, I think we were trying to empathize with what's going on. So reflecting back, not just in that time, but just since you've been part of Scrum Alliance, how have you seen Scrum Alliance grow, and what do you think of the current state where Scrum Alliance is?
The current leadership is doing an awesome job, over the past few years, and it's really trying to maintain focus to help really the community and people grow. When the Scrum Alliance first started, right, it was a for-profit company, right, and it was basically Ken and maybe Mike Cohn and some others, and Jeff, right? And when the trainer community was less than 20 people, right? We were having the same kind of conversations that we're having today with the community of hundreds. It's good to see that people are bringing some new techniques and sharing the results with the Scrum Alliance, right? The Scrum Alliance right now, I think, is still going through what are we going to be when we grow up? Because they've got a ton of money sitting in the bank, right, as a nonprofit, and to serve a community. And then what is it? Are they a certification machine? Are they really about coaching, or what is it? So it'll be fun to watch how this starts to evolve.
Yeah, I mean, like if you look at it, and what I would like to see from Scrum Alliance is that organization for impact, which they are, like what you said, helping in schools, like bring some of these ideas, helping teachers, nonprofits. What they've been doing also is I just spoke with Kiro Harada from Japan, and like going into some of these areas, and maybe it's not just Scrum. Obviously, I think it's limited a little bit when we say Scrum Alliance, but just like helping people do better work and be happier. I think that's something they have an opportunity to do that, and as a community, we have opportunity to be part of that and almost ride that wave, because a lot of times, like I feel like I've hit a lottery with being part of this group, and we tend to get at each other. We tend to, but we have opportunity to make an impact. Some people would wish to have opportunity that we do as trainers and coaches, And I feel sometimes they will probably do a better job. Maybe not, because we're all humans, but it's just I feel privileged to be part of this community, and I think we all have responsibility and opportunity to make much bigger impact. And like you said, maybe when we grow up, or we're slowly growing up, that will happen. So I don't know if you share the same views, but that's kind of like what I'm thinking about when I think about Scrum Alliance and how it's evolved and what the future may hold.
Yep. And really I'm now working with people who want to do this, right? It's the people who are just, you know, up against and fighting or raging against the machine, or don't want to change. You know what? Have fun, right? Continue doing whatever you're doing. Let me know how that goes. And the people that are saying, wow, this thing can make a change, and this is possible. I'm loving working with those groups of people all around the world.
Yeah, and something that I want to come back maybe to, but which is related to Scrum Alliance too, and some of these programs. In a sense, Scrum Alliance is known, and a lot of times people see it as, you know, 2-day certification, but not many people know about the other training opportunities, coaching opportunities, other certifications that require a lot more time. And I really enjoy, like you said, following up and helping people develop, because, you know, after that 2-day training, which is, you know, most of the classes are CSM, CSP for most people, but that follow up and helping people grow, because those 2 days are obviously not enough, and a lot of times people don't have the support in their organizations that they need. Do you think we'll focus more and more on that type of service where, like, you know, it's not just transactional, hey, you know, come take the class, but more of a follow-up and truly trying to help people? Because we all know what it takes to succeed and to learn, and 2 days is by far just enough to get you interested and familiar, but it's nowhere close to, you know, what people need.
Yeah. And it's important to also realize the Scrum Alliance is not going to make that change. It's us as a community that have to make the change, right? For me, it's very non-transactional for me. I've been training since right at about early 2006, and over those 15 years, I'm still in contact with people that I trained over 15 years ago now. Some of them now are like, I'm tapping out, I'm retiring, which I'm like, whoa, I'm seeing a lot more of that. And most of the business that I do in training and consulting is almost all word of mouth. I'm not the cheapest person out there. You know, I'm not out there competing on, you know, do my $295, you know, CSM. I've kept my pricing pretty consistent. And I'm probably getting smaller classes, but again, it's people that want to be there. I actually try to tell people who are there just for the certification or check the box, go somewhere else. Because it's the experience that I, again, try to create is not the one-off transaction, but, you know, we're in it. You've bought access to not only me, but a community of people that I've trained and worked with and consulted with over the years around the world.
Yeah. And I've been messing around with that because, like, I've explored both, you know, in a sense. And I can tell you that for me, when it feels more of a transactional, like if I'm working with a partner and it's all about just run a class, right? Like, I also feel like I'm less motivated, like, especially if there's a lot of people in there, and I feel like I could do much better job in helping them if it was like, you know, 12, 15, 20 people at max rather than 30. And it kind of has a impact on me, how I train, how I feel like I contributed to their growth. And it's making me think, like you just said, like, you know, what am I really trying to do here? Like, you know, is it make more money? Is it have a bigger impact? Because I think deep down, what I want is that impact and know that, hey, you're paying, but you're getting, what I think is right. I'm not trying to maximize just on my end, and it's a constant battle for me because for whatever reason, I guess as a human, and also being, I'm still fairly new to this whole training business because I come from more of a coaching and consult, and it's a different model than being a CST. So
Absolutely, and recognizing that a lot of the people that come to the initial trainings come for very, very different reasons. So again, it's a lot of times it's, does the date work? Does the pricing work? Used to be, did the location work? That's gone now. Right. And so a lot of people, I would say, that are searching don't really care who it is that's delivering. So my focus on that is like really get people who want to do this. Again, it doesn't always happen, right? I'll get people in the class that are like, oh, my boss is forcing me to be here. And that's a rough slog for 2 days, and where it's pretty much 2 days of guided discussions, and whether it's in person or online, people use different techniques to learn and train. So
yeah, and it's another thing that I've been thinking about is mix of like, so from typical CSM, a 2-day class where I've done like advanced Scrum Master classes. I spread them over like 1 month, and those I love because there's more interaction, both when we're it used to be I did a couple of physical, which were great, but even on Zoom, this was before COVID, but now on Zoom, it's really nice just to be able to continue that connection and people to be able to go back, apply stuff, talk to them throughout the week, and then come back and there's different feeling to it, and you can tell the what people get out of those. Same thing with like CSP and like now Cal classes. I'm finding, I don't know if you teach those, but like I'm finding that having that mix too as a trainer is really helpful rather than just like doing one type of classes. So that's another thing that as a trainer I'm considering, like, what is that mix? How do I motivate myself and feel like I'm contributing not to my bottom line, but to everybody else's bottom line as well.
And we are running businesses, and it's important to understand that, right? And it's a different mindset. It doesn't mean we have to chase every shiny object that's out there, right? The Scrum Alliance offers a lot of different badges and certifications. Intentionally, I am not chasing a lot of them. I'm staying super focused on what is it that I'm trying to do. Okay, so for me, it's again really important to go deep somewhere and really understand a domain or industry or sector really well.
That niche,
Yep.
Yeah. Well, questions. What else do you want to ask me? Because I've been.
So what can I do to help you get the book out?
You can read it. I have.
So I read like the first day you dropped it, right? Hey, I want some feedback. I was like, okay, I could see this is definitely V.001.
Yeah,
I would love to take a look at
what
does it look like, and give you some feedback if that's what you'd like. And because I read a lot. I read at least 1 or 2 books a week.
I used to do that, not currently, but yeah, maybe like it's I don't know. I think you were one of the first ones that I asked. It's been at least a year, and I've added a lot more to it. But maybe even just nudge me a little bit. just to, you know, maybe coach me through it. You know, when you think about me, or you see Miljan, how's that book, or when do you have anything to send me, whatever it is to get me back into. I don't know if it's going to help or not, but I definitely need a little nudging, I guess.
And while you're out and about on you know, maybe hitting the reset button, one of the great books that I recommend to writers is Stephen King on writing.
I've read that, and yeah, that's. And do you know that I live about an hour away from Stephen? So it's a great book.
It's a great reminder, right? Again, and when I say write every day, if you get a chance to you know, get Mike Cohn on here, that he's just, you know, a rock star in that.
Well,
you know,
I was asking him. I got Mike, and he was saying the same thing, right? Every day, he's like, he was even playing with Pomodoro and like just write for half an hour, and then, you know. So, and I've asked a couple other people that have written books, and same message. And again, I just gotta refocus, and hopefully this reset, but of just taking a little longer break will help with that. But I think I know in my head. It's just you know, the actual doing part and getting back in the rhythm. There's something to be said about getting back into the habit of writing. So
I mean, like even at conferences with Mike Cohn over the years, you know, or things that I've worked with him on, it's you know, he does his keynotes, he does his talks, and then he goes back to his room. And early on, you know, when I talked to him about that, I'm like, why aren't you out there, you know, networking with people? And he's like, I'm writing, right? I have a job. And he's super focused on that, you know, and he's built an incredible, you know, organization of, you know, some rock star trainers and products that have been super useful to people.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, like, I think he should be inspiration to all of us in a sense, you know, even, you know, starting the Scrum Alliance and you know, one of the things that he said that was really funny and resonated was, you know, you have to be just about right amount of lazy, where, like, you know, you're not trying to do everything, and you're not, you know, and there's so much to be said about that, where you know, think about where your focus is, you know, and what you just said. He could have done a network, you know, done all of that, but he knows where his focus is. So that's a good advice. And yeah, anything that you can do to help me. Yeah.
So here we are at like episode, what, almost 50. So 47, 48, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Here's my offer. If this podcast / videos make it to 100, bring me back and let's like, we'll rewatch this episode. Almost like we could almost do a watch party and go, look at that. What were we thinking back then?
That would be fun, actually. That's a great idea. And just reflect on it. And I agree. Let's I don't know when that 100 is gonna be, but yeah, let's do that. I think that would be fun. Or even you just gave me an idea, like even inviting everybody, whoever wants to show up that I've interviewed, and I don't know, maybe just open it up. It might be too many people, but maybe only a few show up. But that's a great idea.
Yeah, maybe do that for 50.
Yeah,
when you get back.
Maybe. Yeah, that's not bad, dude.
See, again, ideas. We got so many ideas.
Putting them into actions, right? And deciding which ideas, you know, you want to explore. What is maybe something that I haven't asked you, or maybe something that you want to highlight as we're kind of nearing here? Is there anything that you want to share? Anything that you want to ask me?
Really for the listeners and people watching this, you know, you've watched this conversation. It kind of has gone in and out. It's almost like, you know, we're sitting at a bar talking.
That's what exactly.
You know, take conversations like this, pick out one thing and then apply it on a daily basis. If you've got ideas, put them into action, right? And if you need help, like if you're stuck or you need an introduction, contact me.